Welcome to another episode of The Ultimate Creative. I'm your host, Emily Milling, and today I want to share with you how podcasting has changed my business. It's been a bit of a ride, I'm not going to lie, but honestly, this is probably the best decision I've ever made for my business. I've had my business for the last 2 years now. It's been through several iterations, and this time around, it feels right. I've tried starting podcasts for my business before, but I think what was missing was the why behind everything and knowing exactly what it is that I want to do with my business to help people. So without further ado, I'm going to give you just a little bit of a sneak peek into how this whole process has changed and transformed not just my business even, but me as a person, Emily Milling. Before I started the Ultimate Creative Podcast, I had multiple podcasts. I had one, a radio play, very radio much play. We performed that live every single month in front of an audience, and then we record it and put it out into the world. I had one called Her Name Is, which is a show about creative women you should know in Toronto. I was also a podcast editor for a show called Sleep With Me, which is adult bedtime stories. I did that for a while until the show was so effective that I could not stay awake anymore. It's a really good show. I got tired listening to it because of the nature of it. Bedtime stories for adults, truly. If you're trying to fall asleep, you got to listen to it. I also started a podcast for a company that I used to work for, Venture Lab, where we would highlight entrepreneurs. We had a bunch of different segments, talked about specific things related to entrepreneurs. I was never really the host, though, of the podcast. I was always sort of either on the sidelines producing it, or I was just, there to be the interviewer to feature somebody else. What really changed for me, though, when I launched this podcast was that I was like, I know I want to be front and center now. I know I want to be getting all the attention for myself. And I know this because I made a decision that I wanted to start building my own dreams instead of somebody else's all the time, right? And I think we've all been there. And as entrepreneurs, we're always kind of up against this, like, well, I could take on this extra client or this other work that really has nothing to do with what I like or enjoy anymore. Or I could do this thing that I've been thinking about doing for a really long time and say goodbye to a couple of months of money until things start, going again. And this was a really big, hard decision that I had to make because I love money. Money's great. And the thing is, I really need it to survive, probably like most of you. So saying goodbye to that, starting to say no to things got tough. I turned down some pretty big projects, all in the name of having this podcast, having my own content, and building a business around courses and helping people more on a one-to-many level versus just a one-on-one level, and then sticking only with services that make sense for me. So helping people to produce their podcasts one-on-one for sure. And I have a monthly package now that supports that, and it's been going super duper well. And then I've got websites. I'm still doing websites, but they're not the big complicated ones anymore. They're the ones that are for sort of like your next level up from a Wix or a Weebly or whatever, your first paid website. They're really meant to help you scale. And that was always what I was gravitating towards. And the people that I was working best with was always in these realms, right? And so when I made the decision to change up the business and really be focused on these specific things, I also made the decision that I want to be putting out a podcast every single week. Because if I'm going to be selling it, I really got to be putting it out there too. I really have to be able to walk the walk, talk the talk, whatever. You know the saying. I really need to be able to demonstrate this to my audience as well. Because I think a lot of us as entrepreneurs, we do get really stuck again in doing it for other people, and we get by on referral and word of mouth and everything. But if I want to build a business that is going to support me without me doing 8 billion kajillion hours of work every single week, it needs to change. It needs to move online and be more virtual and digital. So I knew I needed to create a podcast so that I could actually connect with people one-on-one. I mean, I've always known the power of podcasting and that intimate feeling where like, you're listening to somebody week in and week out and you feel like you're friends with them. And it's this weird phenomenon, but because you're listening in your ears and you feel so intimately connected with them, it's incredibly powerful. So like I knew all of these things. I knew all of these things. Why was it so hard to start? I wasn't confident in myself at all. A lot of people that I talk to before we get started with their podcast, this is like the biggest stumbling block. And so I had to work really, really hard on building up my confidence in order to get to that level where I was okay putting myself out into the world and being like, oh shit, like, I don't actually know if I'm going to sound smart or stupid or what people are going to say. And I had to be in my own corner in that moment and just be like, Emily, shut up. Don't shut up. Emily, start talking, because you have to be recording. You need to be, again, walking the walk and talking the talk. I don't know what that phrase is. I wish I did. Whatever. So I bit the bullet. And at the beginning of the quarantine lockdown fun party time we've all been having, I sat down and I recorded 4 episodes, the most awkward episodes ever. And I re-recorded them a couple times because they were awkward even before I finished recording them. But I leave them up there, and I'll tell you why. Because I want to know where I started and where I got to. Like, recording this now today, and this is the 3rd episode I've recorded today, I feel so much more comfortable and confident explaining this whole process to you. I have developed a habit, right? I have developed the habit of showing up on audio and on video and on Instagram and all of these things, something I was not very comfortable with a couple of months ago. And some of it was kind of facilitated by the fact that I've been stuck at home and had no other way to really be social with people. But I've held myself accountable and I made it a priority because, again, like I just knew that this was something that would be a game changer for my business. Another really good bonus and benefit of all of this is that I've become much better at interviewing people. I was so afraid to interview people at the beginning. I just interviewed my boyfriend. Luckily, he was relevant to the audience because he's got a podcast. So, feeling uncomfortable and unsure, it's like, yeah, but then what about in a couple of months when you've got, I don't know, what episode am I at now? Probably 20 almost, when by the time this one comes out. Feeling more confident and just knowing that you have the capability to produce this much content, like I feel so much better about what I'm able to sell and what I'm able to tell people and how I'm able to help them. I feel like I'm not a fraud. I feel like I'm not an imposter anymore. I think that's probably the biggest takeaway. That is the biggest change to my business and to my life since starting this podcast. So just some food for thought, something to think about. The other thing, actually, there's a bunch more things. So I'm going to go. The next thing that I found that has really changed my business is that I'm definitely attracting the right clients to me. And I did talk about this at length in an episode a couple of weeks ago, how to attract the right customers to you with your podcast. This has definitely opened up a lot of doors for me to start working with super awesome, positive, happy people who are 100% willing to work collaboratively together. This was such a hang up for me over the last 2 years and taking on as much work as I possibly could in order to pay the bills because I love money so much, as we all know. But I did it at the cost of my mental health. I always had these clients that made me feel like I was just, I don't know, like they didn't care whether I lived or died. And that might sound a little bit extreme, but that's just how it felt. And I feel like, we've all been there. But then you get these clients that are like, oh my God, we're like a perfect fit. We're like a perfect match. And we still talk and we're still friends now. And these are the people that I am now attracting because I am confident with my podcast. And also because on my podcast, when you're listening to it, you already know that this is just who I am. And so you're able to decide for yourself whether or not you want to work with me. So being able to really pull people towards me who have a similar mindset, who are collaborative, who are creative, who love making amazing, cool things and getting shit done and getting out there. Like this is huge for me. This is such a big deal. Again, totally transforming my business and how I operate. It makes me feel so happy, honestly. Another thing that I am loving right now is more visibility. I am being asked to speak on different panels, like virtually and otherwise. Is there anything otherwise right now? No, it's just virtually. I'm being asked to speak virtually on different on webinars or panels or summits and all of that sort of stuff. And people are recognizing me on Instagram more, and I am getting more calls to just like learn about what my services are. I've elevated my visibility in planet Earth. Well, in my industry, in the area in which I am trying to be seen, I am 100% definitely being more seen because, again, I've got a podcast now. I've got the confidence. I'm feeling amazing about the fact that I can create content for people that is super valuable, that is teaching you how to do the same thing, make you feel super awesome about yourself. I've got more trust as well. More trust because I am creating, again, a weekly episode that you can count on. Every single week, I'm going to give you content, whether it's about podcasting, whether it's about some other area of digital marketing. It's some sort of creative mindset, anything like that. You know that you can find that wherever you download your podcasts, of course, every single week. There was one week that was an exception, but that was an incredible exception. It was very important to not post anything that week. So being consistent is building up trust with my audience. With you, you know that you can rely on me. And that is also changing how I cultivate a community around me. I was never really one to do that before. I'm a Scorpio, okay? Like I like hiding. I like to not answer the phone ever, even if it's somebody that I know, or I don't answer the door. I'll like just stare out the peephole and like wait until you're gone, and then I'll go out and see if you've delivered something. And if you haven't, I'm not speaking to you ever again. I like gifts. Send me gifts. I'm joking. Am I? We'll never know. But now I have more of a community around me. I am making more friends. And that leads me to my final point. I'm having more fun. I am having so much more fun because I have the confidence. Okay, so the biggest transformation obviously is just the confidence. Like, let's be real. I just feel so much better in my own skin because I know that I'm talking about stuff that I love, that I feel passionate about, and I'm not hiding behind any sort of a facade or anything. And I'm having fun because I'm building my own dreams. Again, like I'm focused on the courses that I want to put out there. I'm focused on the specific services that I want to put out there. I'm not feeling that weight of the world on my shoulders. I'm not saying I'm not making money a priority. Of course, money is always a priority because I've said that 15 times already. I love money. But it doesn't mean that it has to be the only priority. And I always knew that. And I always had to work through that because mental health is like hard. I go through depression a lot, at least once a year, seasonal depression. It makes things very, very difficult, you know? But on the other hand, it would be a lot easier if I was only dealing with things that made me feel good about myself, which I'm starting to do. And so come fall, maybe I'll do an episode in the fall about how seasonal depression can really mess with your brain, even if you do love the stuff that you're doing. That'll be an experiment for then. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast to hear that episode in the future. Shameless plug. Okay, well, let me wrap it up here. Let me wrap it up here by saying podcasting has totally changed my business. It's changed me as a person. Podcasting is a word that I haven't gotten sick of yet, also, surprisingly, because I literally talk about it all the time. And I don't run out of things to say about it, and I still really enjoy it. And even after I finish batch recording all of these episodes, I'm about to go record a brand new podcast with my friend Alicia Carrick, which we have named, what did we call it? You Gotta Laugh! Another podcast that you can check out wherever you get your podcasts. It's an improv podcast, an improv comedy podcast. If you want to hear a more salty side of me, you can check that out. You Gotta Laugh. I'm going to close out by saying if you've thought about starting a podcast for whatever reason, I don't even know, not even just for your business, for like whatever, if you want to do it, just do it. Because if it's been inside of you this whole time, just waiting to come out, there's something there that you need to start doing. You need to start talking. You gotta show off the passion you have for whatever it is you have the passion about. And if you want to learn a little bit more about how to start one, I've got a free mini course. It's free. How to start a podcast. So check out the link for that. I will leave a link to that in the show notes. So check out the link for that in the show notes and let me know how it goes. Send me a link to your podcast so that I can listen to it and let us share podcasting love and happiness together. I will talk to you next week. I've been Emily Milling, and this is the Ultimate Creative Podcast. Have a marvelous day.